If you've ever wondered whether we will see our beloved animals again after this life, today you will finally receive a clear answer. This testimony reveals a truth that few know, a truth that will fill your heart with hope. Stay with me until the end, because the message Jesus wants to send you will help you deeply, especially if you have ever loved, cared for, or cried over an animal in your life. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications to receive every new message the Lord will send us. And if you too believe in God's eternal love, write Amen in the comments to support this mission. Enjoy listening, and may God bless you. My name is Elena, and I am 65 years old. Ever since I was a little girl, I have felt a deep faith in God and an immeasurable love for animals. Raised in a humble family, in a small village, my days were framed by evening prayers and by dreams that one day I might have a little corner of the world to share with a big family of my own. Despite my affection for every living creature, practical reasons meant my parents never allowed a pet in the house, and so that part of my heart always remained empty, like a tiny room that was never lived in. When I met the man who would become my husband, I thought life had finally smiled on me. We were happy, young, and full of hope. Yet over the years, our plan to have children shattered against the hard reality of 1,000 failed attempts. Every test, every treatment, every prayer seemed to dissolve into a painful silence. And as time went by, that dream turned into a void that filled every corner of our home. By the time I reached 40, I had to face the truth no woman wants to accept. I would never become a mother. One day, my husband, his heart heavy, suggested we adopt a cat. I still remember the almost guilty look in his eyes as he told me that even if we could not give life to a child, we could still give love to another creature. When we brought Flash home, a tiny bundle of gray fur with bright eyes, something lit up inside me. We named him Flash because he moved like lightning, a small spark of life that had suddenly illuminated our dim world. He quickly became our everything. My husband, initially hesitant, fell head over heels for our little friend. Flash filled the emptiness with his cheerful presence, dashing through the house, meowing sweetly. He was the child we never had, loved with a tenderness only those who have known absence can understand. Whenever we went out, even just to attend Mass, it weighed on us to leave him behind. Every return was a celebration, every caress a prayer of gratitude. I thought that perhaps in the end, God had found a way to heal our pain. Our life with Flash flowed peacefully, shaped by little habits that had become family rituals. Every morning he woke before us, leapt onto the bed, and, with his light paws, stroked our faces as if to say, "Time to get up! Don't waste the gift of another day." My husband, always a reserved man, melted under that attention. He laughed, played with him, and often carried him in his arms like a child. Watching them, I thought that perhaps it isn't blood that creates a family, but the pure, unconditional love that arises without demands. We were happy, or as happy as one can be in this imperfect world. Yet life so often surprises us when we least expect it. On an ordinary night, while everything seemed normal, fate tore away another piece of my heart. My husband fell asleep with a smile on his lips, talking about small plans for the weekend. But by morning, he did not wake again. A stroke, swift and silent, had taken him without a cry, without a struggle. I still remember that morning, the light filtering through the curtains, the cup of coffee I had prepared, not knowing it would never be drunk. I remember my scream, broken, unreal, and the emptiness that spread through the house like a tangible presence. But most of all, I remember Flash, who approached me slowly, as if he understood everything. He curled up beside me, rubbing his little muzzle against my trembling hands, and stayed there, motionless, asking nothing. In those days, When everything seemed meaningless, he was my only anchor. He carried around small objects that had belonged to my husband, as though he wished to help me remember. A tie left on a chair, a sock hidden under the bed. Each time he appeared with those treasures, my heart tightened, yet I also felt a slender thread of love that refused to break. In the months that followed, the house grew too silent. Days were long and empty, and the evenings nearly unbearable in their solitude. Still, amid that desert of pain, Flash was always there. With his quiet presence and faithful gaze, he reminded me that despite everything, I was still alive, and that perhaps, in some way, I was not entirely alone. Years passed, and even Flash, my little life companion, began to show the marks of time. Movements once quick and playful became slow and labored. He was still my Flash, with eyes full of love and a desperate longing to stay near me, but his fragile body spoke of a battle he was slowly losing. I remember the faint tremor when he tried to climb onto the sofa, the soft meows asking for help, and how my heart shattered each time I lifted him, feeling bones jutting beneath his fur. One day our fragile calm was jarred again. The neighbor's dog, suddenly crazed, chased Flash until he tumbled into an old hole in the garden. I found him terrified, shaking and injured. My hands trembled, and tears blurred my sight as I pulled him from that trap. The veterinarian told me he was old, that his body would no longer recover as before, but I clung to every tiny improvement, to every glance Flash cast at me as if to say, "I'm holding on for you." In the months that followed, his health declined sharply. A genetic illness, explained to me in compassionate words, began consuming him from within. He could scarcely walk, dragging weary paws, speaking only with his eyes filled with pain, yet also with boundless love. It felt as though he whispered that, despite everything, he did not want to leave me. Not yet. I remember sleepless nights sitting beside him, gently stroking his back, whispering words of love I did not know if he could still hear. Each beat of his small heart seemed a prayer. August 7th, 2024, was the day I had never wanted to live. Flash, my little warrior, fell asleep and did not wake again. I remained for hours beside his motionless body, unable to accept that it was truly over. I buried him with honor, as one buries someone who has saved a life, because that is what Flash had done for me. He had saved me from despair, had given me a reason to endure. And now that he too was gone, the emptiness had become a black, silent abyss. My mind began to give way, slowly but inexorably. I stopped eating, stopped caring for myself, stopped caring about anything. Pain had devoured every part of me, but precisely in that abyss, when I believed there was no return, something immense was about to happen. I remember lying on that couch for hours, drained of all strength, with neither the desire nor the need to rise. Then, at a certain moment, something happened. A strange sensation enfolded me, as though my physical body had suddenly become weightless, almost insubstantial. I saw the room from above, saw my motionless body, the pale skin, the hands fallen to the sides. Part of me was afraid. Yet another part, deeper and tranquil, felt that this was only the beginning of something immeasurably greater. Without knowing how, I began to ascend, or perhaps to be drawn upward, first gently, and then ever more swiftly. Yet while I believed I was rising toward the light, a dark, heavy force suddenly pulled me downward, like an invisible hand that seized my soul and dragged it toward unknown depths. I felt a cold wind, a bitter stench of burning and despair, and before my eyes unfolded a landscape no human heart could endure without trembling. The sky was pitch black, scored by flames that seemed to scream, and the ground was strewn with suffering souls, contorted in cries of pain so deep they seemed to come from the dawn of time. I stood there, immobile, unable to move, terror gripping me like a vice until a luminous figure appeared at my side. Unlike everything around me, it radiated a warm, reassuring light, and its gaze held no fear. It drew near and, without speaking, made me understand that it was my guide, sent to accompany me through that horror. I heard its voice not with my ears, but directly within my mind and heart. Do not fear. I am here to show you what few are called to see. This is part of the path God has chosen for you. With slow steps, we began to walk among the lost souls. Everywhere I looked, I saw faces distorted by agony, heard screams broken by an eternal suffering. Some tore at their hair, others covered their faces as though to hide from an unbearable shame. "Who are these people?" I asked, my voice shaking. The guide replied with infinite tenderness. "They are those who rejected love, who chose selfishness, hatred, betrayal. They are not here because God wished to punish them, but because they refused every chance of redemption while alive. Hell is not a sentence imposed, it is the fruit of a free choice." As we went on, I saw scenes that shattered my soul. Men and women chained to memories of cruelty, deceit, lives spent destroying and never building. The farther we walked, the heavier that pain seemed to grow. Within me rose a question I could not suppress. What happens to animals, innocent creatures, when they leave this life? With trembling voice, I stopped the guide and asked, "Are they here too? Do animals suffer like this?" The guide smiled with a light that seemed to cleave the surrounding darkness and answered, "No, daughter, the animals are not here. They cannot be damned, for they have not known sin, they have not chosen evil. They are pure beings, and elsewhere their spirits dwell." Those words, amid such horror, were like a drop of honey on an open wound. Yet my journey through the darkness was not over. The guide bade me continue, for other truths were to be revealed. Those simple, radiant words of the guide gave me a strange strength to go on. If Flash was not there, if none of the beloved and pure animals had fallen into that abyss, then a spark of hope could still shine even in that timeless place. Following the guide, we crossed other regions of hell, each seeming to mirror a different kind of sin: pride, cruelty, despair. In a vast plain of red rock, I saw souls tormented in a way that left me breathless. They were not bound with iron chains, but seemed wrapped in invisible flames, flames springing from their own consciences. There were no jailers, no demons inflicting torment. Their very rejection of love, of truth, had become their eternal sentence. As we walked, I suddenly beheld a scene that pierced me like a blade. Certain souls, isolated and desperate, relived moments of their past lives. Men and women who had abused animals, laughing at the suffering of defenseless creatures, trampling the fragment of purity God had entrusted to them. I saw one of them kneeling on the ground, hands over his face, while before him rolled images of wounded, abandoned animals, violated for mere amusement. His lament was unlike the others, not only of pain, but of pure remorse, a remorse he could never mend. I turned to the guide, tears I could not restrain, and asked, "Why must they suffer so? Can they not be forgiven?" The guide looked at me with boundless compassion. "God forgives every heart that truly repents," he said. "But here come those who refused repentance, who chose indifference until their very last breath. Those who inflicted pain on innocent creatures rejected one of the purest gifts God placed on earth, the capacity to love expecting nothing, gaining nothing, needing no reason. That is why their torment is doubled. They suffer for the evil they wrought and for the good they spurned." I stood long in silence, listening to the endless lament. Part of me wished to flee, to close my eyes, but the guide laid a luminous hand on my shoulder and said, "You are not here to despair, but to understand. Only one who sees the abyss can truly cherish salvation. Only one who feels the weight of sin can esteem the worth of forgiveness." The farther we went, the more I felt weariness and sadness hollowing me out. Yet there was also a strange peace in knowing that pure creatures like Flash would never know those shadows. Animals, the guide explained again, are part of creation that praises God simply by existing, by living according to divine design. When a person welcomes an animal with love, he honors God himself, for he respects the life that flows from his hands. And when one mistreats an animal, he profanes that gift, profanes the Creator. That thought engraved itself on my soul like fire. We walked a little farther, yet the worst now seemed behind us. The guide smiled and said gently, "Now it is time to ascend. You have seen enough sorrow. Now you will be shown the reward God prepares for those who love." In that instant, a blinding light rent the darkness, and I felt a sweet power lift me, drawing me away from that timeless abyss. I was leaving hell. I was rising toward the place no human word can truly describe. The sensation of being lifted from the darkest depths into a kingdom of light was so intense and sudden that I could scarcely breathe. Darkness, cold, and lamentations melted like mist in the sun, replaced by a sweetness I had never known. I rose, or rather, was drawn upward by an invisible, irresistible force. And the higher I went, the more dazzling the light became. Yet it did not hurt my eyes. It healed every wound, pouring through me and transforming me until fear, sorrow, and guilt melted like snow beneath a spring sun. Time vanished. There was no yesterday, no tomorrow, only an eternal now brimming with peace. When at last my feet touched ground, I found myself in a place beyond description. A garden where no earthly colors had ever shone so vividly, no fragrances breathed so purely, no harmonies mingled so perfectly. Every flower seemed to sing a silent hymn to the Creator. Every tree bowed gently to a breeze that was more music than air. I walked on, guided only by the irresistible call of that superhuman beauty, until I saw him. A figure approached, wrapped in so pure a light that speech deserted me. Yet I knew without introduction who he was. Jesus, not as in paintings or childhood prayers, but alive, real, more real than anything I had ever known. His eyes were the very depth of love. His smile erased all fear. As he drew near, he stretched out his hands and spoke my name. Elena. The sound of my own name upon his lips caressed my soul. I surrendered and fell to my knees, not from terror, but from love, while tears of joy washed every shadow from my heart. Jesus bent and lifted me as one helps a beloved friend who has weathered 1,000 storms. He did not speak as we do, yet every glance and gesture conveyed more than 1,000 speeches. "Your journey has a purpose," he told me, his voice a music that spoke straight to my heart. "You have been chosen to see and to bear witness, for many need to know what you have lived." Though I did not fully understand, my heart assented, as if it had awaited these words forever. We walked through the garden, and Jesus unfolded truths I had always suspected, yet never dared truly believe. Every creature, he explained, every living being, is part of a perfect divine design. Animals are precious gifts, mirrors of God's love, guardians of spiritual lessons humans often ignore. When a person welcomes an animal with love, he welcomes me, he said. Every caress, every act of care, Every sacrifice made for an animal is recorded in heaven as an act of pure love. His words planted seeds in the fertile soil of my soul. God often places an animal in someone's path not by chance, but to offer a redemption, a mission of love, a window onto heaven. When you find a creature in need upon your way, he told me, it is as though I myself am asking, will you share in my love? Will you be a reflection of my mercy? Speechless, I realized that every instinct to protect and to love had never been mere human emotion, but a divine call. Looking at Jesus, an indescribable joy overflowed within me. I had never been alone. I had never loved in vain. And now, at last, I was beginning to understand. Jesus took me by the hand with a tenderness no words can truly convey, and guided me beyond that first radiant garden into a valley that seemed to throb with new life. With every step, the air grew purer, the light more enveloping, and inside me an emotion swelled, mingling awe and wonder. We walked for a span of time I cannot measure until a vision opened before me that stole my breath. An immense, endless garden where thousands, perhaps millions of animals ran free and joyful. I saw cats of every color chasing one another through meadows of fragrant flowers, dogs leaping happily across living streams, horses galloping like gentle wind beneath skies that seemed to sing. Little birds with iridescent feathers danced in the air, and deer with golden antlers strolled beside unafraid lambs in perfect harmony. My heart burst in my chest at such beauty, and tears of pure joy streamed down my face. Jesus looked at me and smiled, and without words I understood that this place was the fulfillment of a promise, the flawless reflection of God's love for every creature. Then, as though love could surpass itself, I saw him. Flash, my beloved little Flash, running toward me, his body young and strong again, his eyes full of light. He reached me and rubbed against my legs just as he had done 1,000 times on earth. I felt his warmth, his breath, his love. I gathered him in my arms and wept like a child, sensing every wound life had dealt me healed in that instant. Jesus let me linger in that moment, honoring its sacredness. When my heart was strong enough for a new revelation, he sat beside me on the golden grass and spoke. Animals who have lived alongside the faithful, who have shared true love, are never forgotten, because love is never lost. Every creature that has received and given love with a pure heart shares in eternal joy. He explained that not all animals possess consciousness as humans do, but those who have been loved and have loved become part of the new creation God keeps for his children. No tear shed in love is ever wasted, Elena, he continued. When you cared for Flash, when you wept for him, you performed eternal acts. Heaven records every small sacrifice, every caress, every smile given. His words caressed my soul. He told me that God often allows an animal to cross a person's path to awaken the heart, to keep it from closing in pain or indifference. When you find an abandoned cat, an injured dog, a small being in need, Jesus said, it is as though I am asking, will you share in my work of love? Will you be a bridge between heaven and earth? Every act of mercy, even the smallest, holds eternal value. And sometimes, in saving an animal, one also saves one's own heart. I listened in silence, letting each truth carve itself within me. In that place there was no haste, no clocks, only the time needed for every revelation to find its home in the heart. I looked at Flash, rolling happily in the grass beside me, and understood that nothing had been in vain. Every pain endured, every act of love, every tear and every shared smile had held a meaning far greater than I could imagine. Gratitude overflowed in me like a flood, and my heart rose in silent song to the one who had made all this possible. Yet, within that perfect joy, a quiet bitterness stirred. I longed for my husband to be there too, to share that moment of glory and peace. With a knot in my throat, I turned to Jesus, unable to hide the desire burning inside me. Knowing every thought before it formed, he smiled with a gentleness that scattered all sadness and said, "He is watching you, Elena. He loves you, and you have only parted for a moment. It is not yet time to see him, but that day will come, and it will be as though no time ever separated you." Those words fell on me like dew upon a desert, filling every empty space. I grasped that his love for me had not faded, that the bond we had built in life still lived, cradled in God's own heart. Tears clouding my sight, I lifted my eyes to the golden horizon and whispered with all my soul, "I miss you. I cannot wait to see you again." Then I closed my eyes for a moment, letting that promise of eternity root within me like a firm anchor, a certainty no distance and no sorrow could ever break. Seated on the golden grass beside Jesus, with Flash sleeping softly at my side, I felt as though my heart, perhaps for the first time in my life, were wholly healed. The light surrounding us seemed to breathe with us, to thrum with love in every particle. Jesus looked at me, and his gaze was so intense, so laden with truth, that I could not have borne its depth had he himself not been sustaining me from within. "Elena," he said with infinite gentleness, "what you have seen is only a part of the eternal reality awaiting those who love and allow themselves to be loved. Animals, like the pure souls of little children, share in the kingdom's joy because they have lived according to the nature God gave them, a nature of trust, dependence, and unconditional love." I remained silent, listening to each word as one listens to the beating of one's own heart. "When a man or woman welcomes an animal, when they care for a helpless creature," he continued, "they are not merely performing a human deed. They are taking part in my own work of love and mercy. Every act of love, however small, every caress, every selfless attention, builds the kingdom already on earth." I lowered my eyes, thinking of every time I had cradled Flash during the dark days, of all the tears I had shed upon him, of the smile he had drawn from me when I could find no reason to smile. Every instant, every heartbeat of love had been gathered, kept, redeemed. Jesus bent toward me as a father toward a beloved daughter and said, "Elena, return to earth and tell what you have seen. Tell them the material world is not everything. Tell them the true treasure is not riches, power, or fleeting glory, but the love that is given without expecting anything in return." His words rang like bells within my spirit. "Remind them that every creature entrusted to their care is a precious gift," he went on, "and that they will be called to answer not only for how they treated their human brothers and sisters, but also the smallest creatures, those the world deems insignificant." The eyes of Jesus shone with an even brighter light. An animal found by the roadside is never a coincidence. It is an opportunity, a silent test of the capacity to love without conditions. When they rescue a defenseless being, they rescue me. When they close their hearts, they close them to me as well. An irrepressible emotion coursed through my soul. It felt as though every fiber of my being were awakening to a truth I had always sensed, but that now blazed like the noonday sun. "Tell them that I am the way, the truth, and the life," Jesus concluded, "and that whoever truly loves will never be lost. Even if the road is hard, even if the world mocks love and humility, let them persevere. Persevere in loving, in believing, in hoping. For every seed of love they sow now, even toward the smallest creature, will bloom eternally in heaven's gardens." Then he embraced me, an embrace that erased all fear, all pain, all doubt. In that instant, I knew I had never been alone. Not in days of mourning, of illness, of solitude. For he had always been with me. In the small daily signs, in the unseen gestures, in Flash's silent faithfulness. When that embrace released me, the light around me began to pulse more strongly, and I understood it was time to return. I cast one last look at the garden, saw Flash running joyfully through the meadows, free, youthful, immortal, and felt within my heart an unshakable promise. We would meet again when my true time had come. The descent was gentle as a song, like a wing gliding effortlessly. I opened my eyes in my old house, still seated on the couch, my body weary, yet my soul new. It was still my earthly world, but I now saw it with different eyes. And now, to all who read or hear my story, I wish to send a message, a cry of truth burning within me like living fire. Do not close your heart. Do not believe those who say animals are merely soulless beasts. Do not believe those who teach that God is distant, cold, indifferent. God is near. He is here. And every creature placed beside us is a call to become his instruments of love. Receive animals as gifts from heaven. Treat them with respect, with tenderness, with responsibility. Do not ignore the stray that gazes at you with sorrowful eyes. Do not pass by the small wounded being. For there, in that encounter, speaks the God who created heaven and earth. Be reflections of his love. And above all, believe in Jesus Christ, for in him alone is true life. In him alone, love becomes eternal. No matter how much you have erred, how many times you have fallen, each time you choose to love, each time you choose to serve life and not death, you draw nearer to heaven. Do not waste time. Do not wait for tomorrow. Begin today. Open your heart and become hands that heal, eyes that see, hearts that love. For in the end, when all that is earthly has vanished, what will remain is only the love you have given. And on that day you will find every creature you have loved, welcomed forever in the arms of God. I sincerely thank you with all my heart for staying with me until the very end of this testimony. If you haven't done so yet, I warmly invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications so you won't miss any of the precious messages the Lord wishes to send us in these times. Also, I encourage you to leave a comment below, sharing where you are listening from. It would be wonderful to feel even more connected, more united as one family, especially during these challenging days we are all facing. May God bless you abundantly, watch over you and light every step of your journey.